grow rugby, grow rugby, grow rugby, grow rugby, grow rugby.
Yo, what's up, everybody? This is GiftTime and Bailey. Welcome to another episode of Grow Rugby. I'm glad to have you guys all here. Hey, I know there's not really a whole lot going on. We obviously know sports are all out. Coronavirus is taking over. We're really about to end up going into full lockdown quarantine mode soon, but you know, there's still a lot of great stories, a lot of great things happening. You guys get a chance to be able to enjoy some good story and rest time, whether you wanted to or not, and spend time with family if you're with, or you get to be able to really fully get to engage in your own self, develop your own mind. Like, it's been wild. Like, I know for us, you know, being able to, having to cancel the HBCU Rugby Classic, then you're seeing all the college rugby, then everything. Like, everything's closed down. So we're all in the same boat. Won't lie, I'm kind of interested and inspired by this. Just kind of want to see how much we can, how much I can be able to produce on it. But you know, I'm just here. This is I always like to see where the win-win is going to end up being. And even though things can be a little bit daunting, especially with the looming recession and everything like that. Well, not looming. I guess we're already in it. It can make things feel a little bit more agitated. To say the least. But, hey, you know what? You're alive. You're here. Hopefully you're healthy. Hopefully you're doing okay. And if you're not healthy, hopefully you get better. And if you had lost, then, you know, hopefully you'll find recovery that comes within it. But in the meantime, I hope you guys are able to enjoy this podcast. It was a great interview by this kid named Dave Rhymes. And Dave Rhymes, one of the reasons why I had actually decided to interview him was he had a unique situation of being able to play rugby while having type 1 diabetes. And I thought it was something that was really interesting in terms of being able to see the full effort and grind that rugby players can actually have. And it was actually a really good story. Played for Atlantis Rugby, U18 guy. Actually, we did this interview back in December of last year, and you know, it felt right around time to be able to drop it out. So I hope you guys enjoy it. It's really good times, great responses, seeing what opportunity and mindset does to being able to play the sport of rugby, and more importantly, how it can impact back on your own life. Opportunity and network. That's what we are here. Grow Rugby is about opportunity and network and understanding what rugby can do or how rugby can impact it. So without further ado, I hope you guys enjoy this. Dave Rhymes. Let's go.
Never take me serious, well I guess you can flirt. Lord Armstead and the telephone skirt. Pedal to the metal, then I surf. They got time for busting, no discussion, I just flirt. Never take me serious, well I guess you can flirt. Lord Armstead.
I am here with the Dave Rhymes out of Florida, North American High School Sevens, All-American. Dave, man, how you been doing today?
Been doing good. It's been very fun today so far. So,
man, I love it. I love it. So, thank you for being on the show. You know, you're one of the first going into 2020. This is a big year for a lot of us. This is going to be you're going into your final year, senior year. So, spring senior year, right?
It is. It's about to come up.
How's the senioritis feeling so far?
I don't got any right now. You just got to keep on grinding. So
Yo, I like the way you think. Right, I'm already here for this. So, you know, I kind of wanted to get a little bit of a start on who Dave is. How'd you get started in rugby? You know, what is your story, and how was it that you got to this point with the North American All-Americans?
So when I was in 7th grade, I saw a poster saying that, I should try rugby out. And a couple of my friends were like, oh, we should give it a shot. So, and I went to a clinic, and my first clinic I hated. I was like, oh, I'm not going to like this sport. I had a football mindset. This is not for me. And I wanted to quit the first day, and my dad told me, no, just give it time. Let it build on you. And so, therefore, I just kept on playing. And then in 7th grade, I came in playing with like middle schoolers, 8th graders, 7th graders, and I was playing fullback. Didn't like it at first, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to give it one more year. And then the next year I played fly half, and that's when I started loving the sport.
So you consider yourself, so it was whenever you became a distributor is whenever it kicked in for you?
Yes. When I started getting to pass the ball and actually see the joy on people's faces when they get to score, and it's like, I love passing the ball. That's like what I like doing, and it's just, that's when I became in love with the sport.
Oh, I love that. So let me ask, do you consider yourself then as being more of a giver? Like you like to actively try and, do things for people?
It's a human thing. Oh, everybody wants to score. Trust me, I love scoring. It's one of the best things in rugby, but it's also, I have a very great pleasure of giving the ball to other people and let them have the, how am I put this, like, have the pleasure of scoring. Because I've been playing rugby for 6 years now, and I've scored quite a bit. It's like, and some of these people haven't scored. Some of these people haven't scored much, and it's just like, let them be the star of the show, and that's how I always think about it.
No, I think that's legit. And, we always, when it comes to rugby, there's always the talk about the tenements of rugby. And obviously, generosity is part of that. Generosity and teamwork being part of that. So to know that already intrinsically, you already have that feeling. And that look, I know I can do my stuff. I have the ability. But if I can help others and get them to their spot, it only makes us all better in the end, right?
Yes, 100% agree.
Now, is that something that you've always had since you were younger, or is it something that you built up from your parents or environment? Like, what kind of brought that into your mindset?
So when I played football, I don't like saying this, but I was always in Little League, I was always one of the better ones on the team. And so I always was told that I went from running back to a lineman. So I always know what it's like to block for the running back, and it's like some of those linemen don't get enough credit. So it's like on the rugby pitch, I want to give people the credit they deserve and let them be like the star in a sense.
I think that's legit, and you're right. When it comes to football, it's the big guys who, ironically, are probably one of the most important positions because you can't pass, you can't run without them, So I think that makes perfect sense in terms of understanding that if you're in a position where you now have the opportunity to give everybody a chance, let's try and do it, because you're right. They're going to remember it. You're going to remember it. We get better as a result.
I 100% agree. That's how that was always put into me by my dad was my coach, and he always drilled that into me.
So I want to touch on that. So obviously you said you were a football player, running back, then lineman, which is, man, that's a heck of a change. Did you play fullback or were you a halfback?
I was just we ran a single wing, and I was just a running back, and then I got moved pulling guard to block. So that's where I stood.
That is wild. Like, I don't think I've ever heard that transition. I would have thought running back maybe to tight end, running back to linebacker, but running back to kudos again. I give credit.
I love blocking. Is my favorite thing to do in football. So
yeah,
hands down.
I feel like you're one of those people that are like, look, I'm here for the one-on-one, like you versus me. Who's about to have the stronger arm on this one? Who's gonna win the technique game?
That is me when it comes to football and blocking. I love it. Just comes down to heart. How much are you going to put on the field for it?
So did you feel like whenever you moved over to rugby, and I love the fact that you talked about the fact that it didn't kick in for you on the first or second try. It was like the third season that you took it where it actually settled for you. So in your mindset, what was it that just didn't sit right initially for you with rugby?
I didn't understand the game in a sense, and I'm that person. I like to be on, like, I have to understand the game. That's how I roll, and it's just I needed to understand. And then as soon as I flipped positions, I started to understand how the whole game flows, because rugby has a different flow than any other sport I've played, and it's just I needed to understand how the flow works and just set in from there.
I think I'm the same way. I need a certain amount of information to be able to acclimate to whatever the situation is. It's just it's about roundness, right?
Yes.
Yeah. No, I can completely understand that one, because even whenever I started playing, I appreciate my coach for giving me at least the simplicity starting off, where it was like, okay, we'll put you at flanker and just look here, take care of this and this marker, and just don't make these mistakes. And within this box, we can work and develop you out from there. Mm-hmm. But if you're just telling me just run on the field and then go figure it out, it takes away a little bit of the zeal.
Yeah.
Because
you gotta have rules to follow.
Right. So you started playing, you get into it year 3. Year 3, what was that switch that kind of turned on? Obviously, you said playing fly half and distributing, but do you remember like that moment where it was just like, oh no, this is now working for me. I'm getting this now.
When that happened, it was year 2. By the way, year 2.
Nice.
And it was when my first game playing fly half, and I remember vividly, I got the ball out off the scrum. We were playing 10s off the scrum, and then I had my outside center run a crash down, and I got to pass him the ball, and he just broke through the line, and I'm like, all right, this is where I stand. Passing's like one of my favorite things to do, and that's where I come from.
How much time do you spend like working on passing drills and working on your passing skills?
I try to do at least like 15 minutes a day, just tossing the ball. I'll toss the ball, bring my ball to school, and just toss it around with my friends. Teach them how to throw a rugby ball if they're curious, and it's just like me teaching someone. It makes me better, if that makes sense.
No, so it's development through explanation, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Almost the same way that as you took into data itself, took into information, you try and process it out that same way as well.
Yes.
Oh, I like that. Do you see that as how you read the field whenever you are setting up your teammates?
That is 100% how I read the field. I look at the field first, and then just like I let things process in my brain, and I'm like, all right, this is what we're gonna do.
Oh, I like that. And look, I also like that you low-key recruit the guys through your practice. It's slick.
I try. I try my best. Florida rugby's not we don't got the numbers, and it's always like, oh, we're a football-minded state, and it's always good to try to get people to come try new things out.
I always wonder because you're working within this age group that I think has the highest possibility of elevating rugby in this country to next levels, because you guys have one of the youngest starts for here in the U.S., and obviously we've always been a multi-sport country, so that always adds a different element to it. But I think the way that information travels, especially through social media, especially through your guys' personal interactions and how you guys utilize everything. And I say this without trying to sound old, but I ask, do you feel that that people within your grade and lower are able to grasp onto or are more willing to try out new things like rugby more easily than maybe people in the past could have, from your perspective?
I do think so, because like everyone in my generation is always like, oh, let me see like your highlights. Okay, like they have all these Instagram pages that just post highlights of college football, soccer, the NFL, baseball, basketball, etc. And if they see these highlights, they're always like, oh, that makes me want to try it, in a sense. It's like, oh, let me get out there and see if I can do that. And then by them experiencing playing rugby or playing whatever sport in general, it'll catch them. It could catch them, if that makes sense.
No, that makes perfect sense. And I guess, it always leads into something that I've always tried to pound, and, it's getting better now, is that rugby has the ability to be a much bigger sport by the way of digital media, social media, emails, whatever you want, because it's finally something that accesses everybody almost equally. without having to worry about paying over costs or anything like that. But I don't think everybody realizes how important it is, and they'll work towards TV or anything like that. Like, for you, how many of your friends, like, outside of maybe football, watch TV on a regular basis?
That is a good question, and I have no idea. I know me personally, I don't watch a lot of TV. So it's all like the Netflix now that people watch, Hulu,
Right.
YouTube, and all that. So,
And so I was going to say YouTube and all that. So yeah, and that proves my point. Like, even in that, it's like, no, nobody really sits down to watch TV. One, nobody wants to change your time to that, but obviously you want to have access to the information in the hot plays, right?
yeah.
Oh, I like
Like
that.
you just want to see it, not have to wait through and watch something in a sense.
I can get that. So whenever you guys are setting up, all right, you're right now, you're in Florida. I used to go to school out in Florida, so I know you guys are nothing but crazy out there.
You're not wrong.
But but you have to appreciate the appreciation for sports. So when you guys are practicing, what is the regular practice for you like? Like, what is a great developmental practice for you?
How we always start, my developmental practice, I always like to start off with warming up the hands, like just run up 5 yards, stop and pass the ball backwards, because that's rugby. You're never going to pass the ball forward. You're always going to pass the ball backwards, and just teaching them, and then going into a little bit of contact here and there, and just then from there, I would say like play touch, and then because I'm a person like I like to learn on the go. Like I like doing something, stopping and learning from it. In a sense, I'm not a drill person where it's like, oh, 5 people go in front of me and you have to wait. Like I'm always like go, 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 go. High intensity practices, and which the high intensity practices get you conditioned for game scenarios. So that's how I work.
I think that's real. One of the things that they always say is rugby is a sport that you can't condition yourself into, but you simply have to play it to just get yourself conditioned.
Well, people are like, oh, how's the conditioning? I'm like, there's not really much conditioning. They're like, what do you mean? It's like a soccer game. I'm like, no, it's a rugby game. I'm like, it's not. You can't run suicides, run Broncos really to get physically conditioned. In my opinion, you have to actually play in a game to get physically conditioned.
Right.
Because when you're running around, you're not taking hits.
Right.
And so.
No, it changes up the way that you're able to impact and go with the sport. Like it, and a lot of people, I think that's one of the uniqueness that makes rugby so amazing. It's the fact that we know what it is to be running around for an extended period of time and getting tired. That's track, that's soccer. We also understand what it is to run in short spurts and have to hit a lot. That's football, hockey, whatever. Well, maybe not so much hockey in Florida, but hockey, whatever. But whenever you're combining the two of them together, I think it's a very underestimated concept. It's much closer to what I would say is more like UFC or boxing than it was.
Yes.
Yeah.
If I have to explain rugby, I always say it's like a soccer and a football game put together.
Right.
That's how I have to explain it to people.
No, I love that. Well, tell me this. Even though we just talked about conditioning and that you can't do anything really much to prepare without playing, but for you, what are some things that you do to actually keep yourself tweaked in between games?
What, like, can you explain,
like workouts, eating habits, or even things that you do leisurely to keep you able to recover, that keeps your body limber, that keeps you strong and lets you know that you're developing both mentally and physically?
Oh, I work out practically every day. And then like today, I took a day off today and I'll stretch. I'll do quite a bit of stretching to just stay loose in a sense. And then ice baths, just cooling off after you're running, keep your feet up and just get all the lactic acids out. And just eating habits, I eat a lot of protein. Like I'll have like 2 steaks a night and etc. Bunch of like potatoes, corn, vegetables, and all that. Drink a lot of water.
Went full country boy on me on that one. No, that's real. Like, I have to ask, is that something that you took from football? Is that something that you took from your dad? Or is that something that your coaches told you? Like, what give you the direction on what you're trying to do to maintain your health and wellness?
The workouts came from my football coach, and like he's like, I used to follow his plan working out, which I did all through football season. Then I'm like, all right, there's some things that I need to focus on more with rugby in a sense. And then the stretching part actually came from one of my trainers. He's like, oh, you should take a day off to train, to stretch. And I was like, oh, keep your body loose. I understand that. And then the eating habits came from my dad, because my dad's reading a whole book about starting strength and all that. And he's like, oh, you need to eat, do all this eating stuff. And I'm like, all right, just taking advice from people. That's how I do my thing.
I was saying, do you consider yourself to be extremely coachable?
I like to take in information. I'm a listener, not a talker in a sense. I don't talk a lot. I take in a lot of information and use the information that I need to use. So I would consider myself coachable.
Oh, that's good. I think that's always one thing that we sometimes forget, especially sometimes rugby players that have been playing for a while. You get to a point where you understand the pattern of the game so much that you almost feel like it doesn't make any sense to listen to anybody add anything to your information, because it's like, no, I got this. But we're always learning, right?
That's how I always think. It doesn't matter where you are. You can be the worst player on the team. You can be the best player on the team. You always need to take in information and improve your game. You can't be what's the word I'm looking for? You can't be fine with being mediocre. You always want to move to the next level. That's how I think.
I love that. And quick question before I move on, because you have a very interesting little story. So there's a lot of little bits and pieces that we got here, but you talked about some of the things that you like to focus on, that you said you wanted to adjust with your workout, that you had adjusted with your workout to focus on that would be better served for rugby than it was for football. What were some of those workouts that you've done that you feel has helped you in being able to increase your output with rugby?
So when I work out for football, we never deadlifted. We always power cleaned. We did bench press, power clean, and squats. So I'm like, all right, those are 3 essential workouts that you need. All right, but there's other things you can add. So I started adding deadlifting in and doing front squats and just working small muscle groups in a sense, and just doing 5x5, because my dad's book that he's reading, it's Starting Strength, and it's always saying start out, do 5x5, and it's worked for my dad. And I was like, you know what, I'm gonna give it a shot, because we always used to do like 3x8, and it's like, all right, it works, but 5x5 with my dad, it's like I've seen a big increase with my dad doing 5x5 than me doing 3x8. So
you go with the results.
That's yes, sir.
So kind of working into that, one of the things that was very unique about finding out about you, and obviously you're playing with Atlantis, and we'll go through some of the teams that you've played for over the last few years, but was in dealing with your health. You have type 1 diabetes, correct?
I do.
So, we're talking about something that typically happens early age, but can you kind of explain a little bit what it is that you deal with, what it is that it is for type 1 diabetes? Because, ironically, not a lot of people know.
So, I have type 1 diabetes, which is where my pancreas does not produce insulin. So, therefore, like, my blood sugar can go extremely high and extremely low. So, your pancreas produces insulin, which regulates your blood sugar. And so I have to do that manually. So I have to check my sugar to know how much insulin I need to give myself because of my sugar. When I eat food, I have to look at my carbohydrates, how much insulin I have to give myself. And it's kind of like you have to be your own pancreas in a sense.
I see. So how does that impact the way that you're able to, whenever you play? Because that has to be very iffy when it comes to dealing with any power drinks. Definitely when it comes to any meals that you get post game, all that. Like, how do you handle that in terms of your gameplay?
So I always check my sugar about 30 minutes before my game, and if I'm low, I'll drink a Gatorade or two. But during the game, my blood sugar always rises because of the adrenaline rushing through. So I check it at halftime, do my thing. Takes me about 30 seconds to a minute, and then like after. When I eat food, I'm not the best diabetic when it comes to eating. I'm going to be the first one to admit it. I'm a teenage kid, so I eat whatever in a sense. What I'm saying, and I just have to give myself insulin for what I've eaten. So like if we have like pizza after the game, pizza affects my blood sugar fairly bad. So I know that I have to give myself insulin as soon as I eat the pizza, and then check in 30 minutes. And normally when I eat, I need to check an hour after I eat. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. But with pizza, some things I'm very, like, I need to do that. I have a set things I need to do so my blood sugar doesn't go crazy.
No. You know, was there how long have you been dealing with the type 1? Was it something you were born with, or when did you find out about it?
I found out, so in 6th grade, I went from 130 pounds to 92 pounds in 3 months.
Wow.
So my mom and my dad always thought, oh, he's growing up. And then I went to the doctor. Like, you could see my spine when I just stood straight up, and my mom's like, we need to take him in. And they checked my blood sugar, and I was like over 600, and my A1C, which is your blood sugar over 3 months, was 16.3, and it's supposed to be like around 6 or 7. And I found out then I've almost been diabetic for, it's been 6 or 7 years in January.
Oh, wow. So, you know, once you figure that out, obviously they give you a regimen, you do the regular medical stuff, but you're a kid at that point. You know, you're talking about 10, 11 years old, you know, and I'm assuming you were playing sports at that point as well too.
I was.
So at that point, how did you get to understanding the management of handling your diabetes at the same time while playing? Like, what was that process like?
So when I was in the hospital, my doctor told me that I was probably never going to be able to play a sport again. And I was like, you know what? Sports is what, like, got me to where I am, born me who I am. And I was like, that's not going to be me. And and then I was like, next year, I'm like, I'm going to play football again. I got back up to like 125, 130. And I was like, yeah, I'm playing football. Nothing's good. I'm just going to take care of myself, know what I have to do. And then that's what it happened.
Oh, so it was just like, all right, it was a dedicated effort. It was a dedicated moment, kind of like a light bulb moment for you. Mm-hmm.
Because I'm going to be fair, football, like sports in general, saved my life when it came to with my diabetes, because no 11, 12-year-old having a 16.3, I think, A1C should have been alive. And the sports would drop me to fairly decent numbers for what my A1C was. And it's like, I can't just be like, quit on sports. That's what saved my life.
I see it. So I like that. It's deeper than just the game. And, you know, we again, there's always the cliche. Everybody's, I love my team. You know, I love the work. I love to compete. But I like the fact that you have this added layer of sentiment to it, because that changes your motivation on how you play, on how you handle it, and obviously how far you want to go with it, because it has a major impact. This is as much another family member as anybody to you, right? Mm-hmm. You know, so whenever you have that, like, when you have these moments, I'm assuming you'll have sometimes these low moments. Like, what is it that you keep reminding yourself or keep telling yourself to kind of keep pushing or pushing harder or, you know, getting through, whether it's a loss or whether it's workout or whatever? What is it that goes through your head as you motivate yourself to move forward?
Well, motivate, like, I'm going to talk about my diabetes first, and I'll go to the sports in general. When I'm hitting a low with my diabetes, I'm a Christian. I go to a small Christian school, and I'm always like, God gave me diabetes for a reason. So it pushes me through, in a sense, to be like, yeah, I got this. He wouldn't do this to me if he didn't know I could. And then when it comes down to sports, it's like, I'm not the person to quit. I'll do anything before I quit. And it's like, it just pushes, because I have to do it for the team. And it's like, it's either I'm in or I'm out, and I'm always in. And it's always a grind. It doesn't matter if you lose. We could be the worst team in Florida. We could be the best team in Florida. You always have to do what's best for the team and put your heart out there. And it's like, I don't know where to go from there.
No, that's a perfect point to make. It goes, it's what's best overall, what's best for everyone, what's best for everyone becomes best for you, and vice versa. Makes sense why you became a fly half and loved it so much.
Not anymore. Fly half's crazy.
We're making changes at all levels.
I had my time at fly half. 8th grade. Cut it from there.
Look, it got you. It made you stay in rugby. That was what its job was to do.
made me love the sport.
Yo, that's what's up. So, okay, so to kind of see where you've gone. So, since then, 6 years into this, you've played for a few teams now. Let me know, who is it that you've had the chance to be able to play for over the course of this journey?
Are we going from club all the way to my highest, or no? Or
absolutely.
Okay, so I first started off playing rugby with the Wellington Wizards. Then I went from there to the Jupiter Sharks to play high school for 3 years, and now this year, my last year, I'm going back to the Wellington Wizards for my last senior year to play with my cousin. And but the higher teams that I've played for our Florida Juice when I was in 7th grade, 8th grade. Then I played for the Florida Elite Dragons in freshman, sophomore year. Then I got into with Atlantis, the U18 side. And then from there I got to the men's U18. Played with the North American Lions, and then I played with USA Rugby up in Toronto.
Oh, so you've had a very experienced journey. Probably more experienced than a lot of people older than you, 10, 15, 20 years older than you have done in their career. So a lot of kudos to the accomplishment of being able to have these vast experiences. So with these experiences, particularly through your high school years, what are one or two of the lessons that you felt have kind of solidified into your playing repertoire that you've learned from playing with these teams?
Definitely with my last trip to Barbados is that I might not be the biggest, I may not be the fastest on the field, but I can definitely compete at the higher level. Like that I am an 18-year-old, but it's like I can play with the men, and it was just a huge confidence booster to me. And then when I went to Dubai with the North American Lions about 2 weeks ago, it was just saying, man, there is some competition in the world, because I come from Florida Rugby. Florida Rugby is not the best, and it's just like, man, there's some monsters out there that are. It's just not Florida in a sense. So, and even with Atlantis playing when I first played with Atlantis on the U18 side, it was like, even then it was a shocker to me, saying like, oh man, there's some athletes in the U.S. And then I got invited to Dubai, and I was like, man, there's some athletes in the world. So.
It opens up the portrait a lot further than you would ever expect.
Yes, very much so. And then it's like, even then I'm like, man, I can compete with these boys. And it's like, it's a very like not humbling, but it's a confidence booster in a sense for me.
Because at that point it goes, yo, if I can do this, what can't I do?
Practically.
You know, I love that. One of the things that I've been a big advocate of is people being able to utilize rugby to open up their cultural realm a little bit wider, because I think we a lot of times get very narrowly focused into what's immediately around us, and especially if you don't go too many places outside of your regular region, you know, you're only going to think, okay, I'm the best of this area. We played some good people. In your perspective, it's like, what can't I do? And this is good, but to have the experience of playing with Atlantis outside the country, and I know you played with Elite Dragons for Tropical Sevens this year, right?
No, this year I played with the Atlantis U18 side. That was my first Atlantis tour.
Okay. I think I might have caught you guys because I was filming for Stars Rugby Sevens, the U18s. I think you guys played them this year at Tropical Sevens in Orlando.
Was it the U16?
Might have been the U16. Yeah.
Because I don't remember playing Stars.
Okay, maybe. But yeah, okay. Tropical Sevens is big.
I know who Stars is though. So
yeah.
Everybody knows who they are.
Give credit to Liz. Yeah. So so you know, it's I think it's unique experience. So kind of before I talk about maybe some of the other stuff that you've done in Florida, what was it like going to Dubai?
It was a eye opener with seeing the different cultures and seeing the different players. Just that, again, what I said, seeing the different levels of like athleticism. Yes, from those other athletes, it's like, man, it's an eye opener, and just saying like I can compete with it. It just and with the culture thing, it opens your eyes to different cultures, and it's an experience that you'll never. It's hard to explain the experience in a sense because it's like you got to be there. It's like one of those you got to be there.
Let me ask if you know, I rugby culture has a tendency to have a lot of similarities. We kind of follow a lot of the same rules, but the way that different cultures kind of present those rules, I think, is always a unique experience. For you, you know, what was one of those maybe typical rugby traditions that you've known before that you've seen in Florida, you've seen here in the States, that when you went to Dubai and maybe another team was doing something similar, you were just like, I recognize it, but yo, they're doing something I haven't seen before, or it's different. Was there an experience like that for you?
Watching the New Zealand playing against the South African kids, saying like, you're like always like, oh, how the South Africans play rugby, it's different, and you're always like, it can't be that different. It's not that different, and then all of a sudden you're playing them, and it's a whole different game, and you're like, I have never seen rugby really be played like this in a sense, and even watching like because it was watching the U.S. play New Zealand, it's like you're always like, oh, you watch them and you're like, oh, that's pretty cool how they play, but watching it in person, you actually get to see how they play. You're always like, wow, it takes a lot more than what you see just on TV than passing the ball. Intricate details that you see them actually do, and it's pretty neat.
Oh, like at that point, do you start taking in your own data and like, all right, how can I mimic this and make it my own?
I do. It's just because I'm a listener, so it's always like I want to. They're like the best. They're the best from their country, and South Africa is like one of the best in the world at the moment. And it's always like, so obviously, their kids are pretty good. So it's always like, let me see what they're doing that I can bring home and I can perfect, I can work on, so I can put it in my playbook.
No, that's real. That's real. Did you get a chance to talk with any of the players after the games or anything like that?
I did. I did get to talk to some of them, but it wasn't like a whole deep conversation because they were all going to theirs and we were going to our huddle. So it was like just a little chit chat here and there. But there's some interesting kids over there though.
No, I always like to try and push for people to experience rugby outside the country, even if it's not in a major rugby country. Even if it's not in a major rugby country, like I always say, go out, just go get something different than what you're dealing with in the States, because there's a whole world, and the pleasure of rugby is you actually have an excuse. That's not just I just want to go do tourism. It's like, it's a real situation, you know? And so, like, I always try and advocate. So I'm glad that you had that opportunity. Is it something that you think that you would do again? Maybe even not necessarily with the Lions, but try and be able to go overseas and play again?
Oh, I'll do it in a heartbeat. I'll do it it was my favorite tour I've ever been on, going to Dubai.
Yeah. And let me ask this. Everybody, we all have our preconceived notions of countries just based off of the information that's provided to us. From what you knew about Dubai and in that before you left versus what you learned about Dubai area after you got there, like, was there any changes, or was it pretty much what you were expecting?
It was pretty much what I expected. Maybe just seeing the Burj Khalifa was never expected how big that building was, and the building was huge, and you're like, wow. So that was probably the only thing. But what I came into, I was like, I expected it in a sense.
Man. No, that's awesome. Look, even the fact that it makes it for its own expectations, I think, is still significant, because it's like, okay, so this is really how it is. Oh, this is really real.
Yeah, like looking through it on your phone, it's one thing, but seeing it in person, it's like, that's why, like, taking pictures, it's like, all right, yeah, you get a picture here and there, but seeing it in person's you'll never forget it. So
that's real. The experience is everything. Experience is everything. So from that tour, outside of what you dealt with different rugby teams, what was one of the things that you took from this North American tour that you feel like you can bring back to your club for this year and subsequently for future endeavors?
Definitely say with the like how he had our what's it called, our structure, and how, like, communication in a sense. Cause I know in rugby everyone's like, oh, we can work on our communication, but we were actually taught more like how to communicate, like a good way to communicate, and it's always good to have that. And like teaching, because when you get to those higher levels and you start to understand, you can always teach kids. It's easier to teach kids on how to do it. So if you really understand, you can be like, then I can help you out in a sense, like with the small details. Because when you're up there, you're not looking at the big picture. You're looking at where your hands pointing when you're passing. Are your guns up in a sense when you're passing the ball? Like, is your elbow up? You look for those things, and those small details paint the big picture, if that makes sense.
No, that makes perfect sense. The nuances, the quote, the devil's in the details is a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting to understand, like, how nuanced the game is outside of what we always consider as the basics of just like, all right, pass the ball, make sure you're giving yourself space, make sure you're tackling correctly, make sure it goes much further into the book than you realized.
It does. Very big time.
So tell me, what was the process of getting onto that North American High School Lions team?
So the way I got it all started with me playing with Atlantis. So me playing with Atlantis, it was my first tournament in Tropical Sevens, and I was like, oh, I have to show out. I have to do good. I have to play my game that I know how to play. So I was like, all right, playing my game. I didn't start the first game, so I was kind of like, oh, it's all right. We got the rest of the tournament to go. And then I started the next game, and I was like, all right, so time to shine. Time to play rugby how I know. And then from there, it was like doing good. We came in the championship, and we played great. We won Tropical Sevens, and I was like, all right, need to go from there. Next step. I got back invited with Atlantis to go to Utah. I'm like, all right, And then I got named co-captain in Utah with Atlantis. And then I'm going in. I played a good tournament. And then I got invited by one of my Atlantis coaches that was coaching for the USA Rugby in Toronto, for the All-Americans, and he invited me to go up there. Then I went up there.
Wait, who was the coach?
Greg Shore. He's one of my Atlantis coaches. And then, so I'm up there, played hooker or center the first game, then got moved to fly half again for sevens, and had a good tournament up there. And then all of a sudden, I'm in my I think I was at a football practice. I got an email from the North American Lions saying, "Oh, you've been selected to go play with the North American Lions in Dubai." And I was like, man, all those stepping stones led up to go to Dubai. And I'm like, wow. And then I was getting talked to by one of my club owners, and he's like, "Oh, the Atlantis U18 team, not U18, the Atlantis men's side, the Barbados needs somebody. Are you interested?" I'm like, "When is it?" And then it was a week after Dubai. And I'm like, not a week. So I had 1 week in Dubai, 1 week in Barbados, back to back. And I'm like, you know what? I'm 18. Let's do it. And I was like, best decision of my life so far.
Flex that passport.
So that's how I got started with the North American Lions and ended up on the Atlantis men's side.
Dude, that's awesome. You know, again, a lot of I love just it's never people always say it's coincidence, but I just love the series of work that you're putting in your time, bit by bit by bit. It's a patience game, and I think even to an extent, it doesn't seem like you were expecting, or it was necessarily an aim for you to get onto the USA, team. But it presented itself.
It did. The reason why I play rugby, it's not for, let me be an All-American. Not let me go to Dubai. It's because I love the sport. And if you don't love the sport, none of these things will happen for you. It's the same way in football. If something pops up in football, it's not because, I'm doing it to do that. I'm doing it. It's no, you love the game. You have to love the game to go to these higher levels. So
I think that's real. You can't put it. There's no true motivation to put in the amount of work if there isn't some kind of appreciated passion that goes along with it. It's too hard, and to be honest with you, to be at that level, it's not worth it if you don't actually enjoy it.
Yeah.
So I think that's dope, but it gives you the opportunity when you get there and you start to see where it opens up. I think that's incredible, and I love that you're able to see that, especially coming at the tail end of your high school career.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of as we start wrapping this up, for you, you've done a lot within your high school and your middle school years. What's the future looking like for you, Dave, when it comes to rugby or just in general?
Are you talking about like college in a sense?
I'm talking about whatever is your future, man.
So I'm talking to 2 colleges right now. I'm talking to Life in Kutztown, whatever you call it. I call it Kutztown. I've been told it's Kutztown, but Kutztown. But really, my main goal is someday to play in the Olympics or play for the USA team, and in the series. And that's been for the past 2 year. Actually, it's just something that I became very passionate about rugby, and it's that's been my goal. And I know I have to, it's going to take work, and it's just I got to figure out what's the best to do for me. And so.
Going to be looking for Rhymes 2024?
That would be amazing, to be honest with you. That would be awesome.
I do wonder how, obviously the Olympic play, but was it that much of a motivator? Was 2016 that much of a motivator for you on seeing rugby at the Olympic level, or is it just the concept of knowing that you could possibly be in the Olympics that kind of added that ambition?
I'm gonna be honest. I really didn't watch much of 2016 rugby. I wasn't like really into it at the time, but like I was passionate about it, but it wasn't like I'm like, yeah, like I want to do this in a sense. It's more of like, yeah, I'm starting to like rugby. I'm loving the sport, but I had football at the time, and I was just like, oh, I'm playing rugby to get me better at football. But then I started realizing I'm better at rugby, and it's like, you always love something more if you're better at it. You always love something more if you're better. And it was like, tides turned, and it's like, rugby's something that I want to focus on. And that happened in 2017. And it's like, that's when I started loving the sport. So.
No, I think that makes perfect sense, and that's real. You know, it takes some time, but yeah, whenever you really start to feel it in your chest, like whenever it hits that right spot there, it changes the perspective of the game so much.
It does.
You know, I had the opportunity of going to the Rugby World Cup this past year, and I have the opportunity of going for the Olympics as well too. So, like, being able to see it at that level, I think for me the game was about what I expected, but I think seeing the crowd changed it up on how much this game can make a difference.
Yes.
And you don't realize it. Like, you always know it. People talk about it, but like you said with Dubai, you might hear about it, you might look at it on your phone, you might hear the conversation, but when you see it with your own eyes, it's a game changer altogether.
It is. It is.
So, final question for you, you know, is, two questions. One, is there anybody that has been a set of, maybe not always necessarily inspiration, but a motivation for you, people who have maybe a philosophy that you follow or a guideline that you like to follow? Are there anybody or anything that you kind of back up on that you're like, all right, this always keeps me reminding of what I want?
It's actually my football coach, because he was the one who he always pushed me. Always said, do what you love. He's like, I don't care if it's football, I don't care if it's rugby, just do what you love, do what you're passionate for. And he's always there to push me, and it's always like, he's like my kind of like inspiration in this sense that you would consider. So.
Oh, that's real. And is there any message that you want people to know about Dave, or about the way that you want people to understand this sport, or just to be able to understand you and how you see the world? Is there anything that you have that you like to just leave out there that just, marks you?
You just gotta do what you love, and when you do what you love, you gotta have fun with it.
Yo, that's real. That's real. Dave, man, thank you so much, bro.
No problem.
Customs made to carry on. It's that black superhero music, carry on. It's that black superhero music.